Today we have 15 hit songs from the 70s that made you go, hey, I've heard that before. Yes, some of the biggest hits in the 1970s were not entirely original, and once you hear the similarities, you can't unhear them.
Am I ever gonna see your face again?
From quiet cover songs that slipped under the radar, to melodies that sparked full-blown courtroom showdowns, these tracks all had something borrowed behind the scenes. Crocodile Rock, Elton John, 1972.
Crocodile rock was out of the sight.
Crocodile Rock, the one where Elton practically jumped onto the piano bench in bell-bottoms and told us all to boogie like it was 1959. With that Farfisa organ, doo-wop bounce, and teenage heartbreak, it felt like flipping through a stack of old 45s. But behind the fun, there was a melody that rang a little too familiar, especially to anyone who remembered Pat Boone's Speedy Gonzales. And no, it wasn't just a vague similarity. The chorus of both songs follows a nearly identical bounce and melodic pattern, enough to raise eyebrows even back then. And Boone's publishers? Yeah, they definitely noticed. And rather than drag it through court, Elton John's team made it right behind the scenes with a quiet settlement of, I'm sure, hundreds of thousands.
You really thought the crocodile rock would last well? Cry rockin'.
But still, for all the legal chatter, the song captured something joyful. Those sock-hop memories, the soda fountain romances, and the way music used to make us feel like the whole world was in color. Crocodile Rock wasn't just a throwback, it was a love letter to the music that made us fall in love with music in the first place. Lady Marmalade, La Belle, 1974.
Your lady Marmalade.
Now here's one that practically oozes sass from every speaker. Lady Marmalade, Patti LaBelle and the crew turned that funky strut and French hook into an instant classic. But what many folks don't realize is that it was actually a cover, originally recorded by the 11th Hour, though their version barely made a ripple. LaBelle took it, cranked up the attitude, and made it unforgettable, but not without stirring the pot. That cheeky French phrase had some radio stations clutching their pearls and yanking it off the playlist, especially in the more conservative areas. But for the rest of us, well, it was the soundtrack to roller rinks, backyard cookouts, and disco lights bouncing off mirrored balls. With its wah-wah guitars and fearless vocals, Lady Marmalade wasn't just a song, it was a moment where music dared to be bold, and we all just danced along. The first cut is the deepest, Rod Stewart, 1977.
Baby, I know the first cut is the deepest.
Now, if you ever got your heart stomped on in the 70s, chances are Rod Stewart was singing what you couldn't say out loud. The first cut is the deepest. It hit like a punch to the gut. Rod's awesome raspy voice, it made it feel personal, like he had just lived it the night before. But here's the kicker, he didn't write it. Nope, that honor goes to the incredible Cat Stevens, who actually wrote the song back in the 1960s and then sold it before ever putting out his own version. So Rod had the first release? No, that honor goes to P.P. Arnold for her album The First Lady of Immediate. There was actually no behind-the-scenes drama here, just a great song finding a new home. Rod slowed it down, gave it a little more ache and a touch of tenderness, and suddenly it was playing on every radio station across America. You heard it in the car, on the kitchen radio, maybe even cried to it once or twice when no one was looking. Cause Heartbreak never sounded quite so good, and Rod Stewart made sure we all remembered our first. Black Magic Woman, Santana, 1970.
She's a black magic woman. She's trying to make a devil out of me.
You hear those opening notes and you're transported. Candles flickering, incense burning, and Carlos Santana's guitar practically casting a spell. Black Magic Woman became one of the coolest, smoothest tracks of the era, dripping with Latin rock swagger and mystery. But here's the twist. It wasn't Santana's song to begin with. Peter Green of Fleetwood Mac wrote and recorded it 2 years prior, back when they were a bit more bluesy than the Buckingham era. Now Green's version was a slow, smoky shuffle, all aching bends and bluesy sorrow, and Santana took that structure, he added percussion, organ, and just the right amount of heat, and he turned it into something hypnotic, part rock, part salsa, part dream.
A black magic woman got me so blind I can't see.
You'd hear it pouring out of dorm windows, slow dancing in dim basements, or spinning on the turntable while incense curled into the air. And yeah, no drama here, just a perfect example of how one great song can take on a second life, and sometimes in that second life, it sticks forever. This Flight Tonight, Nazareth, 1973. If you were spinning the FM dial in 1973, you probably heard This Flight Tonight and thought it was straight out of a smoke-filled biker bar. Nazareth brought the grit, the wailing guitars, the pounding drums, and vocals that sounded like they'd been soaked in gravel. But believe it or not, this hard rock storm started life as a gentle acoustic tune by none other than Joni Mitchell just 2 years earlier on her incredible Blue album. Joni's version was quiet and haunting, all soft strums and whispered regrets, something you'd listen to alone, maybe staring out a rainy window. Nazareth cranked it up, added thunder to the rhythm, and somehow they kept the heartbreak intact under all that distortion. But get this, supposedly Joni Mitchell loved their version, saying it was wild hearing her song reborn as a rocker. And that's the magic of a great cover. It doesn't replace the original, it reveals something you never heard in it before. Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, Rick Derringer, 1973.
Rock and roll, Hoochie Coo.
You crank this one up and suddenly it's beer cans, denim vests, and a whole lot of air guitar. Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo was a party waiting to happen. Rick Derringer made it a hit in 1973, but here's the inside scoop. He'd already recorded it back in 1970 with Johnny Winter's band, where it first saw the light of day. Same writer, same riff, but when Rick went solo, he turned it into a tighter, louder, much more radio-friendly anthem. There wasn't any legal dust-up, but folks who were in the know noticed the quiet tension. Johnny Winter helped shape that original version, and some felt it was a little unfair seeing Rick ride off with all the glory just a few years later. But still, the song absolutely rocked, blaring from car speakers and gymnasium dances alike. If there was ever a song that sounded like teenage rebellion bottled up and shaken, this was it. Blinded by the Light, Manfred Mann's Earth Band, 1976. Now here's a case where a cover didn't just overshadow the original, it practically erased it from memory. Manfred Mann's version of Blinded by the Light had all the sense, flair, and that unforgettable misheard lyric. Yes, we all thought it said wrapped up like a, And admit it, you sang it that way too. We all did. But did you know the song actually came from Bruce Springsteen's debut album back in 1973? Where it was more poetic ramble than pop hit, full of big words, odd characters, and that trademark Jersey storytelling. Manfred Mann took Bruce's free-flowing lyrics and shaped them into something way more digestible for the top 40 radio. They shifted the arrangement, changed the delivery, even messed with a few lyrics, and suddenly this offbeat track was a full-blown FM staple. The story goes, Springsteen was a little amused and a little confused by how far off course his song had gone. But it ended up being his first #1. He just wasn't the one singing it. Funny how sometimes the version everyone remembers isn't the one that actually came from the heart, but the one that came from a Moog synth and a little studio magic. I Shot the Sheriff, Eric Clapton, 1974.
But I did not shoot no dead.
You couldn't go anywhere in 74 without hearing I Shot the Sheriff. Eric Clapton's mellow groove gave reggae a rock makeover and brought it to a brand new audience. It had that laid-back strum, those cool rhythms, and a catchy chorus that stuck in your head. But here's what many didn't realize at the time. It was a Bob Marley original, released just a year prior. And it meant a whole lot more than just a catchy hook. Marley's version was steeped in struggle. His lyrics carried the weight of injustice and spoke to a real political reality in Jamaica.
I shot the sheriff, but I swear it was himself.
Clapton's take softened all that, giving it a smoother, more polished feel that made it perfect for American airwaves, but it did lose a lot of the song's original bite. While it did help introduce reggae to millions who might have never heard it otherwise, it also sparked conversations about giving credit where it's due, and about respecting the meaning behind the music. So in the end, it's a classic case of how a song can hit #1, but still miss the point. Do You Think I'm Sexy? Rod Stewart, 1978. Rod hit the dance floor in full satin swagger with Do You Think I'm Sexy? A far cry from his raspy rock and roll roots, but man oh man, it was sure catchy. That synth hook wormed its way into every party, every roller rink, every school dance, the kind of tune that made even the most reluctant dancer tap a toe. But as infectious as it was, it turns out that that hook wasn't entirely Rod's. Brazilian artist Jorge Ben had released a song called Taj Mahal back in 1972, and when folks compared the melodies, well, it was hard not to notice the overlap. Ben filed a lawsuit, and Rod didn't deny it. In fact, he chalked it up to unconscious plagiarism, which is actually the same explanation George Harrison would use in the My Sweet Lord case. Rather than digging his heels, Rod did something unexpected. He gave all of the royalties to UNICEF. So even if the song was a bit of a borrowed groove, it ended up helping kids all around the world. Not bad for a disco tune that started with a wink and a shag haircut. The Greatest Love of All, George Benson, 1977. Most of us remember Whitney's version, but George Benson sang it first. The Greatest Love of All made its debut in the 1977 Muhammad Ali biopic, The Greatest. And it packed a message of pride, strength, and believing in yourself. With Benson's smooth voice and that sweeping melody behind him, it felt like something you'd hear at both a graduation and a quiet moment of reflection. It wasn't just a ballad, it was the kind of song that gave you a little lift when you needed it. But not long after, Gordon Lightfoot would come forward, saying it sounded a bit too familiar.
Love of all was happening to me.
Specifically, that the melody echoed 24 bars from his 1970 classic, If You Could Read My Mind. He was worried people might think he copied them. Lightfoot ended up dropping the lawsuit to keep Whitney Houston's later version from getting caught in the crossfire. But the songwriter Michael Masser still settled privately, and he issued a public apology. It was a bump in the road for a song about inner strength, but the message still managed to shine through. Am I Ever Gonna See Your Face Again? The Angels, 1976.
Am I ever gonna see your face again?
If you've ever been to a rowdy Aussie pub, you know exactly what comes after the title line of this one. It's practically a national ritual, with the crowd shouting back a cheeky reply that's become part of the song's legend. Am I Ever Gonna See Your Face Again? It wasn't just a hit, it became an anthem, with its raw guitar riff, driving beat, and that perfect mix of longing and attitude. For many, it brings back memories of cranked radios, leather jackets, and nights spent singing along until you're hoarse. But behind all that pub rock glory was a quiet little handshake with status quo. Turns out the tune bore a strong resemblance to their 1974 track, Lonely Night, enough that both bands reached a behind-the-scenes royalty agreement to avoid a legal mess. And get this, Status Quo bassist Alan Lancaster happened to live right next door to the Angels guitarist John Brewster. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. When he asked the singer Doc Neeson if the song was, well, inspired, Doc just shrugged and said, quote, I might have heard it at a disco. So it's one of those classic rock tales where friendship, fuzzy memories, and a few borrowed chords all rolled into two unforgettable songs. Stop Breaking Down, The Rolling Stones, 1972. Tucked inside the grit and soul of Exile on Main Street, Stop Breaking Down sounded like pure Rolling Stones, bluesy, raw, and full of swagger. But the song actually came from Robert Johnson, recorded way back in 1937 with just a voice and a dusty old guitar. The Stones gave it their own twist, with Mick Taylor's scorching slide guitar and Mick Jagger blowing harmonica, turning it into something loud, loose, and totally unforgettable. And get this, they only ever played it live once, with blues legend Robert Cray joining them on stage. But the real drama came after the album dropped.
Please stop breaking down.
Their former manager, Alan Klein, he sued, claiming the Stones had recorded Stop Breaking Down and 4 other tracks while still under contract with his company. The result, ABKCO got a cut of the royalties and the right to release another compilation album. So even when the Stones were paying tribute to the blues, the business side made sure they still got the bill. Feelings, Morris Albert, 1976. Ah, yes, Feelings, the song that launched 1,000 eye rolls and maybe just as many tearful slow dances at middle school dances and wedding receptions. And so, whether you loved it or lovingly made fun of it, that dramatic, trembling chorus was absolutely everywhere. But here's the thing, Morris Albert didn't really write the melody. It was actually taken from a 1956 French song called Portoy by Loulou Gastet. Gastet did not let it slide either. He took Albert to court in the 1980s, and he won, with the judge ruling that the song's main melody had clearly been lifted.
Feelings like I've never lost you.
And by that point, Feelings had already become a bit of a cultural punchline and absolutely huge. The kind of song folks parodied on variety shows or hummed dramatically for laughs. But behind all that melodrama was a very real reminder that borrowing a tune, even one sung with that much emotion, can catch up with you. Cause even the softest ballads come with sharp edges when copyright is involved. Without You, Nielsen, 1971. You didn't just hear Without You, oh, you felt it. Harry Nilsson's voice cracked and soared like he was unraveling right there in front of you. And for anyone going through heartbreak, it felt like someone had put your feelings to music. But as powerful as Nilsson's version was, he didn't write it. That haunting melody and chorus came from Badfinger, a talented but often overlooked band who first recorded it in 1970, almost like they didn't realize they were sitting on a classic. Nilsson took the song, slowed it down, added strings, and turned it into a sweeping ballad that became a global hit. But behind the music was a story that's hard to shake. Badfinger's Pete Ham and Tom Evans, the very guys who wrote the song, struggled under a mountain of legal issues and mismanaged contracts. They saw very little of the money their music earned, tied up in business battles and bad deals that left them out in the cold, even as others profited off their work. And both men tragically died years apart, both way too young, each overwhelmed by the pressure and disappointment that followed their careers. It's a heartbreaking twist to a song that already aches with emotion. Without You may be one of the greatest love songs of the 1970s, but it's also one of the clearest reminders of how even beautiful music can hide a painful story underneath. My Sweet Lord, George Harrison, 1970.
My Lord, my sweet Lord.
It was peaceful, prayerful, and downright beautiful. My Sweet Lord felt like George Harrison's soul set to music. With its gentle slide guitar and chants of Hallelujah and Hare Krishna woven together, it was unlike anything else on the radio in 1970 and probably still today. The song had a spiritual warmth that connected with people from all walks of life, one of those rare moments where pop music felt sacred. But while we were all humming along, something else was brewing behind the scenes. Because as it turns out, the melody of My Sweet Lord bore a striking resemblance to He's So Fine, a bubbly girl group hit from the Chiffons back in 1963. And not just a little alike either, the chord structure, phrasing, and overall feel lined up almost too well. The case went to court, and the judge ruled that Harrison had indeed subconsciously copied the tune. Meaning he hadn't done it on purpose, but it was still close enough to count as infringement. That idea of unconscious plagiarism was pretty groundbreaking at the time, and ended up becoming a really big deal in copyright law. The lawsuit dragged on for years, twisting through all kinds of legal complexities, even involving Alan Klein, the former Beatles manager who somehow ended up owning the rights to the song he was helping sue over. It was as tangled as any courtroom drama could get, and George eventually bought the rights just to bring the whole mess to an end. Through it all, he stayed mostly calm and gracious, never denying the similarities but standing by the heart behind his song.
My sweet Lord.
The initial price was set at a whopping $1.59 million, which was eventually dropped to $587,000. But still, yeah, no small change. It's one of the most famous and strange cases of musical overlap in history. And it just goes to show, even when you're writing from a place of peace and purpose, the echoes of pop music past can still catch up with you. Alright, it turns out some of our favorite 70s songs came with a little extra baggage, whether it was a borrowed riff, a forgotten original, or a lawsuit waiting to happen. Some artists got away with a quiet nod and a check behind the scenes, while others found themselves in the middle of a legal headache. But no matter how the story played out, the music stuck with us, because these songs became part of our memories, part of our mixtapes, even if they started out sounding like someone else's. It's funny how the hits that defined the 1970s sometimes came from deeper roots than we ever realized. And so, if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane back to the jukebox, be sure to give it a like. It really helps our channel a ton. The little thumbs up icon, just click it. Oh cool, thanks. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss a trip down memory lane. I mean, Do You Remember is nothing without you, so please get down in the comment section and tell me what's your favorite of the songs we mentioned. Did you just find out one of your favorite tunes was a cover? Or maybe a memory tied to a forgotten song? Did I forget a great 1970s song that was stolen or covered without you realizing? Well, get down in the comment section and tell me your thoughts on these great 70s songs that had a mysterious past. Until next time, I'm Nostalgic Nick with Do You Remember? Reminding you, even if the melody's borrowed, the memories are all yours.